our three panelists here. I'll just introduce them one by one. There's Sidin Varukut on the extreme right. Yeah. Well, he's India's Dilbert, as they say. He has a day job with Mint, where he's an editor and a columnist. And he writes on technology and office culture. And his trilogy called Doc, which is what has earned him the Dilbert title, talks about the adventures of Robin Einstein Verghese, and has been extremely popular. And people are like waiting for more. They don't want it to end at the third, which Sidin will tell us more about. Then we have Ravinder Singh, who is Ravinder Singh has an interesting story. He's a management graduate, and he worked with IT for a long time. And he wrote a love story which went on to become a blockbuster. It was called I Too Had a Love Story. And then he went on to write 2 more books, Can Love Happen Twice? And then he compiled an anthology of love stories. And he's now a full-time writer, and has a very interesting story to tell about his journey from being in IT to being like a very sought-after pop fiction writer. Jugal Modi is the boy in the series, and he claims he's done all kinds of things, and he's had jobs in social media with Tehelka and Filmfare before he wrote his debut novel, Tok, which is claimed to be a piece of mythological literature, a bestseller, a blockbuster, and all kinds of things. And so he'll tell us about his work as well. I think Samit Basu yesterday summed up the whole concept of popular fiction quite nicely. He said, we all like to watch a dabang, but not all of us have it in us to write a dabang or make a dabang. So we have 3 dabangs here, and they'll tell us about their journeys. So Sidin, what makes your fiction popular, and what made you make that transition from the place you were in to becoming, the doc man?
It is very hard to follow Wendell Rodrigues. Because I was just wondering, I have pictures of women on my phone, so I can show it to you after the. But right now, anyways, I'm being frivolous. I used to always write. I grew up in the Gulf. I was born in Kerala, but I went to the Gulf when I was very young. When I was 6 or 7 months old, and I grew up even though we grew up in the Gulf, we didn't have a lot of money, and so. The single biggest source of entertainment I had was books that I literally stole from other people's houses. I still do that. It's one of my... I'm very good at doing this. I can go and, I can do the whole puppy eyes and say, can I please? So I used to just borrow books from people, and when I was very young, it's very important. The flat next to ours, there was a fire in the flat next to ours. And there was this Malayali family who were trying to come back to India, and they were like 2 days away from packing up and leaving. And there was this fire, it was on a weekend, and my mother and we ran with buckets of water to, And I was very small, but I did whatever I could to fight the fire. And as a gift, they told me I could take any of the books from their half-burnt-out library. So I went and picked up a bunch of encyclopedias. And I've always had a problem with reading books that were not meant for my age group. So I read this bizarre encyclopedia, it's completely factually wrong, which I realized much later. And then when I was 7 or 8 years old, somebody gave me an utterly riveting biography of Idi Amin. And if you have kids, do not make them read a biography of Idi Amin. It is the most horrible book to read. However, the benefit is, at a very young age, I became fully aware of mankind's potential for brutality. And it was just horrible. So I kept reading, and I'd write horrible articles for school magazines. And the good thing always was my father was of the opinion that as long as you get your education going on track, do whatever you want to with your life. Just make sure you get the requisite degrees, you go to the right colleges. Once you get that on track, do whatever you want to with your life, because if you screw up, you can always go and become a engineer, or you can build a bridge or do code or whatever. And I have stuck to that policy throughout my life. I've had great education, which I use as an insurance policy, and then I've had the time of my life. I mean, that's always been my approach. So I did my engineering, and I worked in Chennai for a couple of years. My house got stolen several times in Chennai. I have never forgotten. I will never forgive you for that. Then somebody once came and stole all my taps. Only my taps. You can't make this stuff up, right? I should write that into one of only my taps. I had nothing else. I mean, I was a fresh engineering graduate. I had nothing of value at home. So they took all the taps. Anyway, so this happened several times. Then I did an MBA, then I joined a consulting firm. 6-7 months into the consulting job, I got up and said, look, I cannot do this for the rest of my life. I find no human satisfaction in working on PowerPoint and cheating the wits out of clients. I cannot do this for the rest of my life. So I went to my boss and said, look, can you give me 6 months off? Let me go discover myself. I'll probably write a book, read a lot, I'll come back and figure out. He said, boss, if we started giving 6 months off to people who dislike their job, the entire company we will have to give 6 months off. So, of course, I was quite hot-blooded Malayali boy. I said, screw your job, I don't want it. So I saved enough for 7 months of rent and food, quit my job, went home, wrote a terrible book, which nobody has seen and will never see. And incidentally, the first people ever to pay me money to write was the Hindu newspaper. Yeah. Ever. I quit my job, I posted on my blog saying I've quit my job, become a writer. And an editor from the Hindu called up and from Business Line called up and said, we are the Business Line. We are not the world's most sexy newspaper. So can you please write a column for us which, will give us some sex appeal. And the column was on office culture. So I've literally been writing on office culture for the last 7 years now. And offices are so weird, so I never run out of topics. So I did that, and then one thing after the other. So I've been writing for a living since January 2006. That's really my... And when I wrote my first book, I had no idea it'd be popular. Because I remember we were sitting in the Penguin office and we were discussing who will read a book on office culture. Young people who want to go to office and young people who want to get out of offices. Nobody else will read your book. We were clear about it. Nobody else would read my book. So we wrote the book, and it's bizarre how many people like to read about office culture. I mean, the vast majority of my email I get from extremely senior people. People who have retired from their jobs and come back and say, I read your book, it reminded me of all the miseries of my working years, And it's the one thing that I think the misery of the office is a uniting factor. It's a common factor. It's a very simple thing. People hate their jobs. If we liked it, we'd do it for free. We hate it, so we need to get paid to do it. It's very simple. So so that's the story. And I started writing, and I wrote one book, and they said, can you do 2 more? I said, I can make him CEO, but I don't think I can do anything else with him after that. So I wrote 3 books, and I made him CEO. So you have this nice Malayali guy who's become a CEO. So people come and say, what do you do next? So I said, for most Malayalis, becoming a CEO that's it. So I said I could make him a member of parliament who tweets. I was thinking. But then there'll be sex, then there'll be sex and violence, and there'll be all kinds of things. So I don't know. So I've now completely taken I've just 180 degrees, and now I'm working on a book on Indian history. Wow. Which will probably get my house burned down. Because it'll probably be contrarian, and we dislike being contrarian. So so that's the I mean, personally, I think the idea of calling something popular and literary is kind of a false dichotomy, Because I think I read somewhere, very interesting, they said, look, popular literary fiction is all fiction that has no plot. I think it's brilliant. While popular fiction has a plot. I mean, it's a false dichotomy. I think we have an obsession with putting things into categories. There's an Indian obsession with a person, a concept, anything. We have to put it into a category. So we've got this bunch of writers who are all less than 40 years old. Where do we put them in? So let's put them inside the popular fiction category. So yeah, it's a mix of both. But I think you shouldn't be categorizing a book when the readers don't categorize it. I'm sure there are people who read Ravinder's and Jugal's book, but also read, great
He's sure
Gatsby.
of it. He's not. It's like a polite statement he's making right now.
No,
Yeah,
nobody
like
reads,
Jerry said, there is a...
Nobody reads Jugal. No.
Yeah, like Jerry Pinto said yesterday, that there is a book for every reader and there is a reader for every book.
Yes.
If you don't like the book, pick another book,
Yeah, I mean,
You just...
the literariness of the book, I think, is largely up to the reader. You might find my book profound. You might find Ravinder Singh's book profound. It's entirely up to you.
So, moving on to Ravinder. Ravinder, you tell us about your journey through, you were your management graduate working in IT, and then you got inspired to write your own love story, and your journey to getting it published, which was apparently a pretty hard one. So can you just tell our viewers about it?
I had a very different tale. I never wanted to be an author. I turned up becoming one, so I call myself as an author by chance. I was so away from the world of storytelling that I had hardly read any book before I started writing one. And I was narrating the same tale to two of my newly found friends over the breakfast table this morning, that how I landed in this world of storytelling. Bad things happened back in 2007. This month, February the 14th, was my so-called engagement day, and I lost my girlfriend in an accident 5 days before the 14th. So the trauma hit me so hard. I was sitting in my home with the engagement ring and the sari and everything that I shopped for her. And then I didn't have the person in my life for whom this entire stuff was meant. 3 months down, nothing changed. Whenever it used to get dark, I used to shout and cry. And I wanted to vent out my emotions. And I'm kind of person brought up in a very small town, way out of the culture, in which I could feel that let's go party out, hang out with friends, booze to the extent that you'll forget your misery. Nothing worked out well with me. So I thought to vent out all those emotions. I picked up a pen and started writing. I had various reasons to write my story. I could not tolerate the fact that God brought an end to my love story. And I thought, no, this is not the end. Let me pen down the end of my love story. I wrote my book because I wanted to immortalize my mortal story. I was so in love with my girlfriend that I thought I'll bring her back in my own way in this world. That was my idea of writing a story. And I was taking the coaching classes in the IMS Institute in Bhubaneswar. I spent 25 years in Odisha. The only person I could look upon to was an English professor, and I went to him and said, sir, I'm trying to write a book and I need your help in doing so. And he said, son, before you start writing, let me know how many books have you read so far? And I said, I guess one. And he asked, which one? I said, I don't even remember the name of that book. So he said, before you start writing, let me prescribe some books for you, which you go and read them. He heard my story, and then he fetched out somewhere from his memory that, go read Love Story by Eric Segal. It relates to your story. I don't know if that's true story or not, but it relates to your story. So I immediately went to the bookstore, bought that love story, and I read it in a short of 3-4 days. And the moment I completed the last page of that story, it came out of my mouth that I too had a love story to narrate. And that's how the entire title of the book was coined. So that's the past of 2007 and 2008. It was a hard thing. I think writing a story was still the easiest part of it. The most difficult part was to find out a publisher. I know how I've roamed on the roads of Daraganj, getting rejected by each and every big publisher at that point in time. So much so that I started now talking to the printers, telling them that no publisher is going to publish my book. Let's you and I talk. How much will you take to print 500 copies? And I thought 500 copies could be the best thing that can happen to me. and the world has almost changed. But yeah, that's my phase of getting into the world of storytelling. And I'm proud that in my own way, I could bring back Khushi, who's my girlfriend, back in this world. On the Facebook everywhere, people come and say hi and good morning, as if she really exists between my readers and myself and on those pages. So that's my story.
Wow. So this whole relationship with the reader is what actually makes, the writer take it, to the level that he wants the book to go. So Jugal, I wanted to ask you, how does one know the reader? How did you know who your reader was, and what kind of relationship have you formed with your readers?
One of my favorite types of relationships that I've found with my readers is that usually when I read in colleges, there's always those 3-4 backbenchers who come up to me before the reading, who are not there for the reading, but they come up to me before the reading and say, let's go have a smoke. And yeah, those are the kind of relationships that really work out with readers. So yeah, most cities I'm in, I never run dry, so that works out.
And what made Toke happen for you? What was that point when you decided that, this is a book, I want to put it out there, and this is a story I want to tell?
I started writing because I was a part of this writer's workshop, and one of the common things that we all kept saying at that point, that was even the instructors said that, you are only a writer if you're writing every day. In fact, which was then, I was recently promoting my book in Jaipur, and Mridula Koshi, is she here? Mridula, can you say hello? Yeah. So she kind of elaborated on that sentence and said, you can be a published author. If you're a published author, you're just an author. But unless you've written today, you're not a writer. So yeah, I had not written for a long time. I woke up, I was working with Filmfare, which made a lot of press conferences and parties. And one morning I woke up really hungover and said, shit, I need to start writing. And I ended up writing about 10,000 words of the protagonist, like the complete character and his family, and then I said, now something needs to happen here, and that was the point I realized that stoners need to crash the novel.
And they did.
They did.
Yeah. Sidin, I wanted to ask you about the whole economics of popular fiction. Is it about the pricing? Is price what decides, how popular a book can get? Because, the lower you keep the price, the more, more it can sell, and therefore more the readership. Do you think there's a definite, do you think it's like a planned, definite sort of strategy?
I'm trying to put my MBA mind to it and think. No, I think it started off that way. I do think it, there are two phases, right? Because I remember when I was growing up, and I used to, like I said, I used to beg, borrow, steal books, occasionally buy them. And you'd go to bookstores in India and you'd see that there were two kinds of books. There were these extremely utilitarian books that told you how to solve problems in your life, or you had like R.K. Narayan and the other classics. So you had Competition Success Review, how to clear IAS, how to wear a sari, how to cook, how to cook 15 different types of exciting sambar, whatever it is. And this is what, you'd find this in railway stations. Who in the world wants to read how to cook sambar on a train? Or tie a sari on a train? If you're on a train and you still don't know how to tie a sari, at that point, at what point in your life do you think, I have to emergency figure out how to tie a sari on this train? Never happens. If it happens, you should use a belt if you have to. And now what's happened is, it's completely changed now. So if you go to, Kochi airport and look at the bookstore, the priorities have changed. It's no longer telling you how to solve problems. It's not trying to improve your life. It's become, the utilitarianism of the books we read has changed. And then there were two phases, I think. There was this initial phase when a lot of young fiction was very cheap. And I think Chetan Bhagat kind of started that, I think in May 2004, I think, is when his first book came out. Price point is very important because one of the reasons we don't consume, as a journalist and as somebody who works for a newspaper and does a lot of other things, I believe we place very, very low price on good content. India does not price content highly. So our newspapers are priced below cost price. Our websites have to be free. You can sell a movie DVD at 5 rupees, but people will pirate it if they can pirate it at 4. It's not a judgment on people, but that's how we are. So that was, I've had people who come to me, I've had people who emailed me and said, can you send me a PDF of your book? And sometimes I send them computer viruses. So yes, I think price was first, but now it's changing because like we were discussing yesterday, Ravindra was saying, there are new books in the pop fiction category that cost, pop fiction category that cost 300 rupees or more. So that changes. So we've gone from this being determined by price to I think being determined by plot and who's the target audience and who's the target reader and so on. And I think it'll keep changing. I think as young people read more books, as they realize that they can decide what to read and the CBSE or the state syllabus does not decide what they have to read, that they don't always have to read to become a better person or to tie a sari better or to cook better or whatever. This will change. It's fantastic. I love it. It's amazing. We are a country in which we straitjacket young people's ability to think or do anything. And here they're saying, look, I don't care. I want to read a love story. I want to read about substance abuse. It's wonderful. It's amazing.
Ravinder, you seem to have created this new category of male writers who write love stories, because till then it was like a female domain. I don't want to sound stereotyped, but men were not putting their feelings out there or talking about love or rejection or sadness or things like that. So have you been have male readers written to you about how you sort of liberated them, about making them feel more sensitive, new age, sort of in touch with their feelings? Is that, from your feedback, what have you?
The whole idea was not to create yet another category for male lovers who would come back and express their feelings in that way. But yes, after reading my book, there are plenty of them who have turned back to me. More importantly, they want to talk about their own stories. They feel that someone who has written an emotional and a true story could be the right person to hear our stories. And 99% of time they write to me when they have a sad ending, which bothers me, that why only sad endings? And that was one reason I went ahead to pen down yet another story called Can Love Happen Twice? And I told in the preface of the book that don't take it as my story. It's an amalgamation of so many stories that I've been hearing from people around me. Every time someone used to write me, he or she used to, even girls used to write to me, and they would draw a parallel, and they would say, just like you, I have also lost the love of...
Girls write to you?
See, so then you should start writing love stories.
So...
I've been wasting my life now.
I've just invited a competition here. So, I think what a best book, as per my definition, is something that can connect to the reader's mind. If the reader starts believing that I am one of the characters in that story, I think that's where I will call it a success story. And people do read and write back to me. And yeah, if it's creating yet another category, it's kind of one of the way to look at it, but the whole idea is not to do that.
Jugal, do you like write to an audience? Do you decide who your target audience is before you start writing? What's your process?
My process usually starts off with what is going to make me very, very happy at that very point when I'm writing it. I need to feel completely satisfied. So sometimes, you have a thought in your head. It's not a really clear picture, and then you keep going at it on the keyboard, and, you'll write a para, and then you'll say, maybe this is not exactly what is in my head. You rewrite it. You keep working at it till you're completely happy with the idea and every image that is out there. So that's roughly a part of the process. And then when I feel that, okay, now I'm completely amused by this. And usually I don't like to write things which are not amusing to me. So yeah, when I'm completely amused by what I've written is when I'm happy, and then I send it off to whoever.
All these books are available outside. Talk by Jugal Modi, and I Too Had a Love Story, and Can Love Happen Twice by Ravinder. and Siddon's Dork 1, 2, and 3. So all you guys, if you need to know them more, and go out and buy those books. I think I'm going to just throw it open now to the audience. We'll have questions if...
We are popular fiction, so we should like really get
Yeah.
a lot of questions. Or these literary guys are going to judge us.
Bring it on.
Please
See,
feel
this is
free.
the fun part. I've always seen anybody who says the literary writers or whatever, you check everybody's bookshelf. There's always one secret bookshelf which will have all their Mary Higgins Clarks and their Nora Roberts, and they'll be like a full, oh, it's there. Everybody reads popular.
Yeah.
Self-pleasure, always more.
I think the gentleman there has a question.
Yes. No, it's
not, which others have not written. And definitely to write a history book, you need to study and do research about 20-25 years.
See,
And
the
when
thing-
will you bring your book?
Pardon? Well, I didn't get your second part. The 20-25 years.
No, to do a wonderful research on history, because history was never written. There was no history in India, you know.
Correct.
It was only in textbooks and dates, things like that, you know.
That is, in fact, that is the reason why my house will get burned down. Because
So, like that, what are you going to write?
no,
Which others have not written.
short of agreeing with the general narrative of Indian history, which is we were these amazing people, and then the Muslims came and destroyed everything. Then we briefly became amazing, and then the British came and destroyed everything, and now we are back on our way to amazing. That is Indian history.
Now
in
we are
one
destroying
paragraph.
others.
That is Indian history in one paragraph. The problem is because again we don't approach history from the perspective of fact. We don't want to know what happened to us. We need to know why it happened to us. Who did this to us? That's always the approach. How did this happen to us? You know, how did we allow the Mughals to, you know, how did we allow wave after wave of invaders? The problem with this is you're starting with the question we. Who are we? I mean, you know, I was reading a book recently which says that the Pallava kings were probably Greek in nature, or of Greek lineage. Greek kings in Chennai. Think about it. Now, if I write a book which says, you know what, a lot of you are probably Greek and not 100% Tamil,
That's
I can
going to
pronounce it
burn your
correctly,
house
Tamil.
then.
And, you know, people would get upset. Or you know, if there is, and I don't want to talk too much about I don't want to pitch the book a lot, but every Independence Day, you get this email saying, I'm really proud about India because we never invaded a country in 10,000 years. We invented the zero. Jagdish Chandra Bose invented the radio before Marconi. There are a full 50% of NASA is Indian, probably 60%. You get these, and I have uncles and grandparents who believe in this completely. So they'll be looking at Apollo 13 and watching and saying, where are all the Indians in the control room? You know, they're all white guys. Where are all the brown guys who are actually running NASA? You know, so it's probably wrong. I don't know. It's probably I don't know. One of the things I'm doing is trying to investigate things. I mean, find primary sources. Like you said, there isn't a lot of history, especially the period between the end of the Indus Valley civilization and the Mughals coming in. Most of Indian history was hagiography. You'd be a Kushana king, you'd be king of a kingdom which is like, one district. But your grave will say he was the king of everything from Himalaya to Ganga. No. That's almost UPA 2 level exaggeration, So, but no, so I'm saying is, in the very fact that you're trying to question established ideas of Indian history, I think is controversial. I'm not doing it purposely. I'm also trying to answer my own curiosity. So yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, if it burns your house down but gets you a lot of royalty. Absolutely, no, it is. But you shouldn't be reading it if you're a 7-year-old. Because I remember this distinctly, because it's frozen. There's this entire series of cannibalistic torture in the book. It is absolutely brutal, and we can laugh about it today, but human beings are capable of unspeakable brutality. And once you've done that as a kid, there's not a lot to look forward to. Because you want to think, life is all wonderful, it's all Inspector Gadget, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's not. It's people killing each other mostly, for the most mundane reasons.
Hello?
I think this lady
Hello?
here has a question.
Hello?
My
There are
question
two
Hello?
hellos coming simultaneously. Yes,
Hello?
yes.
Yeah.
Wait, no, there's one more hello.
Hello.
Figure it out between both of you and Wendell. Wait, Wendell, let the lady ask first.
Yes, right.
Her hemline is awesome.
Okay, my question is, okay, so you yourself said that pop fic writers are not taken as seriously as classical texts. I'm not putting words in your mouth. But my question is that do you want to be taken seriously since all the bestsellers are on your shelf? Do you as pop fic writers want to be taken seriously is my question.
We want to be read. We want to be read, you know. I don't know about these guys. But my goal is, you know, I'm assuming they want to be read. No, we want to be read. If people read you, they like what you're doing, the seriousness comes with it. You know, do I want to win the Booker Prize? Yeah, sure. I mean, that'd be great fun income-wise. But will it make me a better writer? I don't know. Will it satisfy my need to tell interesting stories that make people laugh? The most happiest thing that's ever happened to me. It's happened to me 2 or 3 times. I get emails from people who say, look, my mother just died 2 weeks ago, my uncle died 3 weeks ago, my life is miserable. I pick up one of your books, it makes me laugh, I forget about the shit that's going on in my life. I do not think there is a greater award you can give a writer. I do not think there is. It is so fulfilling.
And I think I also want to add to the answer is that when you say, do you authors want to be taken in seriousness? The definition of this word called serious is the one I'll go about. My whole purpose of writing, I need to ask what's my purpose of writing. If the purpose of writing is that to narrate my story among thousands and millions of people, that's what the purpose is. And as far as I'm able to achieve that purpose, I think that's success to me. And apart from that, if the definition is it prestigious? Are you invited to so many festivals, etc., etc.? I think we are right now in one of the esteemed Lit Fest of Hindu. So that again adds to that particular definition.
We are normal human beings. We want validation, we want income, we want love.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Especially
Hello?
income. The rest is fine. Wendell.
My question is for Ravinder. Hi.
Can we just go to him and then come to you?
Mine is not a question, it's just a comment. In favor of Jugal, I don't think we should use the word substance abuse. It's substance indulgence. We like it.
I'm a Malayali man. I know exactly what
it's
you're
saying.
saying.
It's not even substance, actually.
Hello.
So, as you mentioned, like you get comments from many readers that something similar happened in their lives, and some of them might also want to write. So, do you think that a similar kind of content will have the potential to be a good seller, or it would be a kind of deja vu or repetition for the readers?
Well, yeah, there is a chance that it could be somewhat similar. A lot of people said Can Love Happen Twice was a lot similar to the first book, I Too Had a Love Story. It still sold good number of copies, still it found so many readers. Now, just because someone has written a particular story, it doesn't mean that it blocks the way of someone else to write a similar story. There are several words, several sentences, several plots to narrate the same story. Look at Bollywood. We are narrating the same hero, heroine making love, and then end of the day there's a villain, he kills him. It's the same concept, narrated in a various form, and that's what is writing all about. Make it interesting, serve the same concept in the beauty of your words. And if you understand that logic and that fundamental, I think you won't see a repetition happening.
Any tips for the first-time writers?
Write from your heart. Don't try to copy-paste anyone else because you won't be able to sustain that. Be as you are.
Hello,
Thank
hello,
you.
Ravinder.
I would like to pose this question to all the three writers. In present India, which do you think is the most well-read city? And
Say that again.
Which city do you think is the most well-read? And one more thing.
Which city is the most, which city
is the most well...
has the
And in
most,
India, among which cities do your books or columns receive the most, attention?
So I can say that because I've seen my Facebook insights on my fan pages. If I buy that thing and also do my little research in terms of number of people who turn up for these events, I think Kolkata was on the top chart with their interest of reading and the number of people who turned up for such events.
Thank you.
That's just my personal opinion based on the insight that I have collected.
Hello.
I've had a very mixed.
Excuse me, this.
Hello.
Turnouts are quite nice, but cities react to readings differently. So Bombay and Delhi ask a lot of questions. Bangalore is kind of reluctant, but once you probe them, they'll ask questions. Kochi is just petrified of you. They're just completely petrified that a writer has come. They'll put you on a pedestal and never ask you a question. So, despite the fact that it's a tremendously well-read city, there's this boom in, especially in Malayalam fiction, thanks to Benjamin and all these people, there's this boom in Malayalam writing. So, the well-read city is a dangerous question to ask, I think.
This
How do you
gentleman-
judge it?
Hello, Ravindra Singh. I have 2 daughters at home. Could you please let me know which of your books I supposed to present her after seeing you?
You need to again repeat the quiz. Sorry, I didn't hear the last part of it.
No, I have 2 daughters at home, teenage daughters at home. I would like to know which of your books that I supposed to present her after seeing you.
Buy all books from the panelists out
Especially,
here.
I am very particular about your 2 books because my daughters I'm not able to judge what they are doing.
I don't think that's a question that is even valid because I think everybody should read everything. Read as much as you can, whatever of you can find. Grab hold of every book that you can notify from
You take a big
wherever.
wad of cash, take a big pile of cash, give it to your daughters, throw them outside a bookstore. Right, and tell them, buy whatever you want.
As a father, I'm not able to judge what I
So let them decide. They will pick their own path.
So it's,
The ring is theirs to be destroyed.
after
Let
see-
Frodo go.
After seeing you, I thought I can present something of your books. So which one I would like to?
Say, hello?
True.
gentleman-
Kaveri, I love you for that.
Gentleman in the last row has a question.
See, what types of themes that you feel that it can reach the readers and the way you expressed your ideas? Because all writing cannot make it reach the readers. I want to know what type of language or what type of mode of writing that you will follow in order to make it reach the readers. Because there are so many conventional themes that are there which may not reach the readers. Now the readers, they want something different because I belong to a era where you don't fit into that, I feel. But I feel that your way of thinking, it must reach the readers in what type of way that you can put it, and the conventional ideas are there, how they can be put so that it can reach the readers and it can make it more popular. Because all the themes that I find that it is not so much popular, conventionally so many things are there. If it is put, how it can reach the readers? That's my question.
I think it's too profound. I think it's too profound. You can't answer it. Like Jerry said, yes. Jeet said, yes. It's too profound. You won't be able to answer that. So I have a question for Ravinder. Your book's not fiction, then. It's a real life story. Which then, so that puts you in sort of odd space with this panel. And the other, to lead off from there, is that as you talked about it, because I don't know what it's about, and you said there's a Facebook page and you brought the memory of your loved one back. Have you thought of moving on? Have you thought of, because it seems like it could also be a space where there could be severe mental imbalance. And I don't mean that in a sort of funny or crude way, but it could also be some place where you could be stuck and not be able to live the rest of a fulfilled, optimal life.
I'm glad that you asked this question. My first book actually brought the much needed closure in my life. 2007, that unfortunate incident happened. 5 years later, 4 months back, I got married.
Okay, more power to you.
So that brought a closure to my life.
So then we have a chance.
I'm married already. However, I do want the emails from girls. That I want.
And I think when I was in the terms of talking to my publishers that what you want to place, why are you putting a fiction at the end of it? The publisher itself was from the world of writing fictions, and he told me that the biggest confusion will be in the mind of the bookseller who would try and try to find out, where should I keep this book? Should I keep this next to the autobiography of, or a biography of a Jawaharlal Nehru, that it's your biography, but then who Ravinder Singh is. The whole idea. So why not to give it a flavor of fiction? I didn't use the protagonist's name as Ravinder Singh, I used it as Ravin. And the world out there knows me as Ravin more than Ravinder Singh. So that was the whole idea of converting this. And my second book is not a full-fledged true story. It's inspired by some 3 to 4 different true stories. And because of that, I have created a fictitious character and then narrated it as a fiction. So I do belong to the world of fiction. But yeah, great question, thanks.
The guy in the striped t-shirt has a
Yeah,
question.
hi. So I actually had a question about this distinction between popular pop fiction and literary fiction. So as a writer, when you're writing something, so firstly, generically speaking, when you call something pop fiction, do you call it pop fiction because it sells, or do you call it pop fiction because of a certain style of writing, is it a genre in itself, or is it just because it sells that it's pop fiction? Firstly, this is the first question. Secondly, when you say literary fiction, I mean, where is the divide, because it's not, so for example, I'll just ask you a simple question. So if you've read Ruskin Bond, would you classify him as pop fiction or literary fiction? This is one question. And the other thing is like, so if tomorrow you were to write another book, and you were to decide, oh, I'm going to write a really, some sort of literary fiction or something, what would be different from what you've already written if you were to write literary fiction as opposed to pop fiction?
Do you define Led Zeppelin as a rock band or a pop band?
I don't really listen to rock bands.
Huh?
I don't really listen to...
Okay.
You define MS
Zakir
Subbulakshmi
Hussain.
as a...
Zakir Hussain would be a pop artist or a...
Please answer the
classic.
question. I mean,
That's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to give you an answer. Pop itself is an adjective for popular. So if it's selling a lot, it's popular.
So that's
it. It can have literary merit alongside with it.
So what is the distinction? I mean, when you say something...
They're not two genres. These are all just adjectives. Selling and...
So it's the market that decides what's pop and what's literary, is it?
It's completely, genuinely speaking, it's a completely meaningless distinction.
Okay.
Because, I mean, broadly you could say a literary work of fiction probably has greater literary merit, but even that is subjective.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
like,
That's why I'm
it's
trying
completely
to ask
subjective.
that, pose that
Absolutely.
question.
No, it's completely subjective.
So it's only on the part of the reader that you would probably call something pop or literary, right? I mean, not... I mean, I don't know. If writers really
In
think
fact,
they're
I truly believe that it's readers and critics who should be deciding genres. Writers should not be allowed to decide what genre you're writing.
And, also, like he said, we don't sit down thinking, you know what, I've done 3 pop, now I will do 1 lit. No, I mean, I'm not being, I mean, no, we don't. I mean, there's what we can write and we write what we can. And if it turns out being literary, so to speak, fine. Otherwise, if nobody reads it literary, if everybody reads it. But no, I mean, it's a completely false, I think it's a completely meaningless distinction. I think.
But it's kind of assumed, so...
Yeah, no, yeah, it is.
One
And there are various ways of putting it, right? Some people call it popular, some people call it mass market. The New York Times calls it softback, there's all kinds of terms for it.
Okay, Lincoln Park has a question.
Hi, this question is to Sidin. I know you've been a blogger from a long time, maybe 2004 and so on. I've been a long time reader of your blog. So the thing is, we see with the explosion of blogs in the last decade, a lot more young people are able to voice their opinion funnily, in an irreverent way. So do you think, as blogs expand even more, is this sort of going to be an initiation for more writers? Is blogging going to be a precursor to good writing? That's my question.
It could be. I mean, I got my contract and I got my break purely because of my blog. I mean, my entire writing career is taken off because of my blog. I think blogging is on the wane. I don't see as many interesting new blogs as I used to. And for a long time, we were obsessed with the style of blog, which has to be a funny blog, serious blog, humorous blog. India has tremendous potential for topical blogs. We don't have good political blogs. We're beginning to get good sports blogs. The huge world of topics we haven't covered. And I think the good thing is you'll have a lot of young people are saying, let me start a sports blog, let me start a politics blog. It may work, it may not work. I think it's a great thing. I think it democratizes publishing. You're no longer under the control of a few large media companies deciding opinion. It's a great thing. Will it lead to... I don't think there's been a better time to get published in India. If you're a young writer, there has not been a better time. Publishing, they're launching hundreds of books every year, many of them good, many of them bad. They're betting money on it. Bookstores, young people love books. It's a wonderful time. It's a great time.
Okay, I've been told it's a wrap. So last question, okay, Samit.
Yeah, to close, I just want to ask each of you actually, thus far, what's the most patronizing thing that's been said to you, writing-wise?
What What's the most patronizing?
No, as you know, because all of you have come in from, you weren't sort of born into and grew up in the literary circuit. You've come in and made your names from outside. So obviously there is literary friction as you do this. I faced it myself 10 years ago. So I just want to know, thus far, what's the worst thing that's been said to you?
I'm just going through a list of all the patronizing things that have been thinking. Lots
the others could do it in the meantime.
Ravinder, why don't you go with yours? Let me just
The worst thing you said?
Yeah.
How the hell you tried to make money out of selling your own love story of your dead girlfriend? That was the worst thing which turned up, and I was taken aback. Yeah.
I was asked, is there a pot culture in India, really?
Can we take one more?
Just two things.
Oh, Sidin is still thinking.
Yeah, as
There's
soon as
he
I
was
wrote
never
my first
said anything
book,
that ugly.
As soon as I wrote my first book, as soon as it came out, I think 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks, I think a few days later, I got this email from this irate girl, extremely angry. She said, you're writing about people, you're writing about MBAs, you're writing about young people who've gone to, how dare you write topics my Chetan is writing about? So I, forwarded it to police. What else do you do? I mean, but no, the most patronizing thing I've always said is when people say, I've heard great things about your book from other people who've read it. And I hear it on a daily basis all the time. The most sad thing I've heard is my mother-in-law said, I read your book and I read Two States. Two States is a good book.
One for mother-in-laws.
Can we have one last one? Or
Waiting, just pop it fast.
quick.
Yeah, I have this question for Ravinder. You told this, Can Love Happen Twice? It was a combination of other stories and it was not a true story. So how did you manage the transition between the true story of I Too Had a Love Story and this Can Love Happen Twice? Like, what type of challenges you faced in putting it from a true story to a imaginary ones?
First, I read 3-4 true story. I keep getting true story in abundance. So any of the guys want some inspiration, I can pass on that. So I zeroed down to some 3 stories, and I embedded my own stories. Places I have traveled to, Belgium, for example, was a true part of it. I fetched that character. I had to make one positive character and one negative. I cannot make myself negative, so I chose a girl to be negative. But in the real sense, this book talks about the complications of modern day love story. It takes, now gone is the time love used to happen at first sight. It's the time love used to happen on first like on the Facebook. So it talks about these things. I think I looked around me, whatever is happening, it's blended down, borrowed the good characters in my character, brought all the negative shades in the girl's character. And we all are the shades of gray in that book. I think it was not very difficult to make that transition because something that you look and see around you, you don't take a long to think of it. I just wrote what I see around me. I see status like I'm in a relationship which is complicated. The whole book talks about that particular thing.
Okay, now y'all can go and buy the books.